Hey everybody, Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com to talk about the greatest career moments of the Rated R superstar Edge. Edge made his debut in WWE in 1998, and he was kind of just there on the mid-card for a while. Then he teamed up with Christian. The two of them joined Gangrel's Brood, but it wasn't until the end of 1999 that Edge and Christian really began to take off. And the match that absolutely put them on the map was the ladder match they had with the Hardy Boys, the very first tag team ladder match in WWE at No Mercy 1999. It was the Terry Invitational Tournament, the TIT. And going in, it looked like it was going to be dumb just based off of the name, but then the two tag teams went out there and completely tore the house down, and I think they shocked the wrestling world because people weren't expecting this to be a classic. The two teams went out there and just took all sorts of risks, and it was a tremendous match. And when it was over, the fans gave them a standing ovation. And then the next night on Raw, another standing ovation. So, I mean, that's how much of an impact this match made on the fans. And Edge and Christian at this point left Gangrel and went on their own. They were baby faces for a while, but then in early 2000 they turned heel, and this was really a turning point for Edge and Christian. They had the match where they really started to make the heel turn was actually at WrestleMania 16. It was a triple threat ladder match, tag teams with Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys, and this would be the first of a series between these three tag teams. And Edge and Christian turned heel right after this, and they began having some really funny moments on WWE television. They would come out talking about how they reek of awesomeness, and they would do all these segments making fun of people. I mean, there was one segment that really stood out to me where they came out dressed up as Elvis. They were in Memphis for SmackDown, and it really showed a different side of them, that not only were they great risk takers and performers in the ring, but they could also be very entertaining and very charismatic. And then you had the TLC match at SummerSlam 2000. In my opinion, the best of the series. Edge and Christian, Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, just going out there and just doing all sorts of crazy stunts, and it was extremely entertaining. And it was during the peak of the Attitude Era for many fans. And they continued doing entertaining things as well, not just having these tremendous matches, but coming out and having funny backstage segments. There was one where they were playing different wrestler theme songs on the kazoos, and they did like Chris Benoit's theme and Triple H's theme, and it was just very funny stuff from these guys. And then at WrestleMania 17 was yet another TLC match with the three tag teams, and this one was really memorable for the big spot where Edge did the spear on Jeff Hardy way up above the ladders in midair. I mean, it was a really cool moment, one of the all-time classic WrestleMania spots. And Edge, after this, began to start drifting towards a singles career. Edge would go on to win the 2001 King of the Ring, and he promised he would not Billy Gunn this King of the Ring win. And Edge did not disappoint. This led up to the split of Edge and Christian. Christian became jealous that Edge had this success as a single star. Christian turned on Edge. But Edge began to really build momentum in 2002 during his feud with Kurt Angle. This was an awesome feud, one of the best feuds of 2002 in my opinion. There was one segment where Edge gave Kurt Angle a bunch of cards, and as Kurt Angle was looking at these cards, there was writing on the back that could be seen by the camera, and all these insults at Kurt Angle. I mean, it was really funny stuff. And this was also around the time that Edge he came out with a brand new shirt for Kurt Angle, and it said "You suck" on it. And from that point forward, people started chanting "You suck" at Kurt Angle. And then you had the match where Kurt Angle got his head shaved by Edge. So Edge really got over at this point, shaving the head of Kurt Angle. And then the two of them had a really awesome cage match. But unfortunately, Edge got hurt in this match, and this would be the beginning of several injuries for Edge over his career. All the risks that he was taking began to catch up with him, and it started, I think, during this match, this cage match he had with Kurt Angle. I think Edge came back shortly after this. It was more of a scare, but a few months later, Edge got a more serious neck injury, and he had to take off pretty much the entire year in 2003. He came back in 2004 as a babyface, but he didn't really have much momentum. I mean, the people weren't reacting to him all that much. So he ended up turning heel, and this would be another turning point in his career. As a heel, he won the very first Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania 21. And then he would join up with Lita. There was this real-life incident where Edge got with Lita when Lita was still dating Matt Hardy, and WWE ended up turning this into a storyline. And Edge and Matt Hardy had some great matches in the second half of 2005. But it wasn't until Edge cashed in Money in the Bank that his career really took off, and he became a main event superstar. He came out at the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view after John Cena had competed in a brutal Elimination Chamber match. Edge came out, and he became the ultimate opportunist, taking advantage of a situation. He cashed in the Money in the Bank on a weak John Cena. He beat him for the title, and the entire wrestling world popped. I mean, everyone went crazy for this. I was in a sports bar watching the pay-per-view. Everyone was cheering like crazy for it. And Edge would celebrate his title win with a live sex celebration with Lita, and they had a bed there, and this was one of the most entertaining segments in the history of Raw, and one of the highest rating too, especially of the 2000s. It had the highest rating of any segment, I think, since the peak of the Attitude Era. I mean, it was a really successful segment, and it shocked everybody because a lot of people didn't think Edge would get over as a WWE champion, but he did, and he had a match with Ric Flair on Raw, and that was a tremendous match, and that really helped seal the deal as far as Edge being a main event player. And he would unfortunately lose the title right back to John Cena, but Edge was just getting started here. He had his WrestleMania 22 match with Mick Foley, and everybody remembers the big spot in that match where the table was set on fire and Edge speared Mick Foley through the flaming table. I mean, that was something that you saw that, you would never forget it. Another WrestleMania highlight for Edge. And he had the match at One Night Stand, and that was another classic match in WWE. And he actually teamed up with Mick Foley for that one, which was interesting because they had been enemies at WrestleMania. And then the TLC match with John Cena at Unforgiven, another classic ladder match, this time a one-on-one match, and one of the best matches of John Cena's career. And then Edge would move on to SmackDown. Edge would he would win Money in the Bank. He would win the briefcase from Mr. Kennedy, who had won it at WrestleMania, and then Edge would cash it in as the ultimate opportunist, taking advantage of The Undertaker after he had competed in a steel cage match with Batista and got laid out by Mark Henry. Edge would come out, cash it in on Undertaker, and he would become the top heel superstar on SmackDown. And later that year, he would hook up with Vicky Guerrero, and they would become a power couple on SmackDown. And Edge would continue to feud with The Undertaker throughout 2008. They had their big match at WrestleMania, and they had a TLC match at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view that year. But perhaps the biggest match they had that year was at SummerSlam, Hell in a Cell. Edge literally sent Edge into hell, put him through the ring, and Edge disappeared for a few months. He came back with a full beard and won the world title again, went on to WrestleMania. And shortly after WrestleMania, Edge formed a tag team with Chris Jericho, but he suffered an injury, Achilles tendon, and that put him on the shelf again. Edge was out of action for about 6 months. And then he made his big surprise return at the Royal Rumble. He came back, won the Royal Rumble, and later in the year he won the world title. And then he ended up feuding with Alberto Del Rio, who won the 2011 Royal Rumble, and they had their match at WrestleMania. Edge won this match. He retained the title at WrestleMania, and as it turned out, it ended up being his last match. He got an MRI done, and after WrestleMania, he announced that he was retiring. So, Edge, one of the few guys in the history of wrestling to have his last match at WrestleMania where he retired as the world champion. So, I mean, that was something very significant, and you couldn't ask for a better way to go out. So, all the injuries eventually caught up with Edge, and he had to retire perhaps a little bit sooner than he wanted to, although he was talking about retirement around that period, saying he only had a few more years left, but, the injury sped up the retirement process. But Edge had a tremendous career in WWE, and people will remember him for all the crazy things he did, the spear in midair, spearing Mick Foley through the flaming table, and all the funny stuff he did, the stuff with Edge and Christian, the comedy skits, and the stuff he did where he would make fun of Ric Flair. I mean, there were so many funny things he did, and he was really a guy that had all the attributes. He could talk, he could wrestle, he could entertain, he could do anything. So Edge was definitely one of the best in recent WWE history, and perhaps of all time.